Hello, welcome to another episode of Sim Sundays podcast. We are on episode number 40. Today, I'm actually by myself with Mr. Dan Suzuki, sim racing streamer, racer, all those good things. And we had a really good conversation just about streaming in general, some off-topic things as well. But overall, good conversation. He actually got to play Rennsport, so see what his thoughts are about the new game. Well, the soon-to-be new game. Closed beta at this point. Enjoy the episode, guys. So, Dan, the first interaction I really had with you was kind of interesting for me because I was streaming and I had that head cam on one day and I was trying out iRacing. It was probably one of the first times I've actually played iRacing, and you rated me, which thank you very much. But that was absolutely amazing. And I was like, Dan Suzuki, where have I heard that name? And it turns out that I have watched your streams prior to that. Now, I don't watch streams all the time, but yeah, thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
That's one of those things where, you're a small streamer, because I basically have no audience because I stream so irregularly.
Yeah.
And when I looked over, I was like, wait, what just happened? And you kind of get in the mode where, when you're a small time streamer like that, you go, wait, now what do I do? This is going to be crazy.
Yeah, I've been there.
How long have you been streaming, actually?
Oh, I think 5 years, something like that, I think, now.
Really?
Yeah.
You, sir, have what I would call an epic stream setup with the beautiful lights in the background, so all your wheels are silhouetted back there. You got a really serious setup going for, that doesn't sound like you've been in the game for forever, and I only say that being a small streamer, knowing how long it does take to build an audience in the world of streaming. So how did you approach streaming when you first started, and what was your initial plan?
I actually didn't really plan to stream regularly, to be honest, when I started. I was never really a big Twitch watcher. Like, my brother always taught me of Twitch, and I was like, why would I watch others play games when I can just play them myself? But yeah, one day I watched, I think it was Matt Malone and Jimmy Broadbent doing the Sebring 12-hour race together on Twitch. Nice. And I thought, okay, iRacing, I should try that again. And then I got more into Twitch as a viewer. And I always noticed that, I don't know, if I compare sim racing streams to like high production streams of other categories, I always thought, how nice can you make a sim racing stream look like? And that's always been like my motivation to like explore all the technical possibilities to make it look as nice as possible with cameras and everything. And that was basically my main motivation, to give it a try, to see if I can improve this thing. And well, here we are now.
It looks like you have a pretty serious setup there. I started streaming because I just enjoy learning things. So I was like, oh, this seems kind of interesting to dive into. Yeah. And then the extra bonus on top of that is I'm a real tech nerd. So I like buying new cameras, buying new equipment, buying all the new gadgets and gadgets. And of course, now I just have a massive amount of things where I'm like, oh, let's try this, let's try that, let's try this, let's try that. And it's a lot of fun. But
yeah, to be honest, I'm pretty much the same. I just love tech, and I love trying new stuff and exploring everything. And I think streaming is an awesome playing ground for that, because it involves so many things like tech and camera and racing, obviously, if it's sim racing. And
it's
cool.
An extra excuse on top of everything for you to be like, ooh, I need to get this new camera. Ooh, I need to get this new light. Ooh, I need to get this new wheel, right?
Yeah.
It helps you legitimize all the extra purchases. You're like, well, it'll improve the stream, so I better do it, right?
Exactly.
That's pretty amazing. So you stream normally. What I just saw you're in our DM when we were talking about this. You stream Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Yeah, exactly. Do you find that streaming video games or streaming whatever you decide to, do you feel like it almost adds a work aspect to video gaming in a way?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm not a full-time creator, so I treat it a little bit more relaxed. So when I don't feel like streaming, I will just find an excuse and don't stream. No, but I don't force myself.
Feel like it, whatever.
Exactly. I don't really force myself to really have to do it. So But I'm still at a point where I'm enjoying it most of the time. Sometimes there are races where you're just gonna be like, yeah, it's time to uninstall and play PUBG instead. Nice. I don't know. But yeah, it certainly it can take away the joy a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if you do it full time. I often, like, when people ask other streamers that are actually full-time creators, what is your real job? That always kind of makes me a little bit, I don't want to say angry, but I think people don't realize how much work it actually is to have a nice stream and to be consistent. It's not like just start streaming and playing games. It's everything around it. I just stream 3 days a week. I do a little bit of YouTube, but I think I spend way more time into this than into my other job. So it is.
Yeah. I've had the same experience. So I think the root of that question of what's your real job comes from a lot of people expecting most creators to not be able to make it full time.
Yeah.
And I say that only because a lot of people, they do, turn on a video game and throw in OBS and start streaming. And then when they realize how difficult it actually is to do that, to make a good stream, to build an audience, to build a community, to do all those extra things, like in their mind, they're like, oh, there's not many people that can do this full time. So I think it's a lot of the people are realizing how difficult it is to be full-time Twitch or full-time YouTube. And maybe that's where some of the question comes in, because they're like, well, if I can't do it, this guy probably can't either. I want to know what he does for a living.
Yeah,
kind of an interesting, when it comes to the video games kind of seeming like a job after a while, that's where I actually ended up stopping streaming altogether. So I was trying to do the streaming thing full time for a while, just because, well, I mean, who wouldn't want to do streaming full time and make a living doing it, right?
True.
It's in the plain eye, it's playing video games for a job.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's very cool. Anyone who's a gamer out there is like, yeah, that would be absolutely amazing. But the hard part is like, I was working my day job, and then I was streaming every single night, and then I was editing videos up until, midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
Next day, I'm worried about release schedules and YouTube timings and all these things. And it just got to a point where I'm like, I can't enjoy video games, do my day job, and all of this extra stuff. It's just impossible for me as a human being. So massive respect for you for keep on going. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, yeah, I always say if there's at some point where I come to a situation where I really think like I have to stream or I'm not enjoying this anymore, I don't think I will force myself to do it. I mean, obviously, like in 4 years or whatever, how long I've been streaming now, I don't even know.
Right.
There are times where you enjoy it more. There are times where you enjoy it less. But
of course, it's that even happens in hobbies. So,
true,
I'm a video gamer. I also am a cyclist. I also do FPV drones. And there are times where I'll go out on any of these things, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not really enjoying myself like I feel like I should. It's just a natural human trait to be like, well, this really didn't hit the spot in my fun factor, my fun meter, if you will.
Yeah, true.
So it makes a lot of sense. Would you say that you're a single game streamer, or do you switch a lot?
No. I mean, for my streaming stuff, it's pretty much 90% iRacing, I would say. And then the occasional ACC or at the moment, little Rennsport or so. But it's pretty much racing only. I've tried other games on stream to see, first of all, if I will enjoy it and if people will enjoy it. And I quickly found out that I just prefer, like, when I want to play like a story-based single-player game, I just like chilling on my own, not having to talk and just like getting involved in the game without reading chat and then missing half of it. And I just thought, okay,
so much agreement on this side, because single-player games, I'm like, I just want to shut up and enjoy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then when someone types in chat, you're like, just stop. There's a story bit going. Like, leave me alone.
That's true. So yeah, for me, it's pretty much only sim racing, to be honest. Sometimes I do a little bit of designing streams where I make some electronics on stream or so. Yeah. Looks like people have been enjoying that as well.
There you go.
It's mostly sim racing,
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Rennsport in there.
Yeah.
Now, I'm dying to play that game. I have not had the ability to play it quite yet. Of course, I've been watching as much of it as possible.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you probably have some things that you can't share if you're in on it, like NDAs and things like that. But overall opinion of the game, do you think it's going to be one of the better titles out there, or even maybe unseat iRacing?
I think it has a lot of potential. I think we also will have to be a little patient because it is quite early in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a few multiplayer test races, but not a lot. I think it's promising. The physics feel decent to me. I mean, I've never driven a real race car in my life, so I can't really judge that.
You nailed something about sim racers, because on Reddit, in forums, everywhere, they're like, this car doesn't feel real, but they've never actually sat in a race car ever.
I mean, I've seen sim racers arguing with Tony Kanaan what is more realistic. I mean, come on. One real race driver, one sim driver that knows everything better. It's sometimes a bit, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's kind of like the F1 Twitter stuff where none of these people have ever sat in an F1 car, but they all know exactly what Lewis Hamilton should do.
Exactly. I mean, I've once done a video for a YouTube channel comparing ACC and iRacing, and there was one section, physics. And my point of view was pretty much, I just prefer what is more fun to me, because I can't tell what is more realistic. How should I like give people my opinion on what is more realistic? I don't know. And it's crazy how offended people got by me saying that in the comments. It's like
YouTube comments,
dude, it's all about realism, but how should I know? I mean,
how should I know? Like, I drive a GMC Terrain in real life. I'm not like driving in a Porsche. I'm not going to know what what feels real. No idea.
I mean, sim racers can be sometimes a tough audience.
We'll call them passionate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we are all passionate about it, but
yeah, of course. Well, it's that competitive nature that probably brings us back to sim racing on a repeat. You know,
that's true.
We always want to be better than ourselves. We always want to think that all the practice and all the effort that we've put in have made us, smart and authoritative about certain subjects, better on the track than some other people. It's just one of those things where we're natural competitors as a sim racer, because I don't think many people are going to be in iRacing that don't want to win.
That's true.
I don't think you're going to pay for a service like that,
Yeah.
So when it comes to Rennsport, though, the difficulty that I see with it being a subscription service I guess it's being compared a little bit to iRacing in the subscription service side, but it's more direct competitor in my eyes with ACC, just because of the car classes that you're running in for the most part. But my problem will be iRacing right now. The reason iRacing hooked me is because I wanted to do some rallycross racing. Yeah. So Dirt Rally, of course, you can race rallycross in there, but there's just not enough, like just hopping into a lobby and racing 10 races in a day, right?
Yeah.
iRacing hooked me because they had the rallycross stuff. So I jumped in there and I'm like, well, since I pay for iRacing, I may as well get the benefit of all the other classes. So I've tried oval, I've tried dirt oval, I've of course tried road.
Yeah.
And I just like the variety that you have in that service. Now, it's super expensive, and every single season I'm like, I have to buy how many more tracks? What is going on here? I'm like, when am I finally going to own all of them?
Yeah.
But Rennsport, do you think it's going to be a service that like takes some of people away from iRacing and they just don't have iRacing? Or do you think it's more of a have them both for different reasons kind of a situation?
I personally think it could be a both kind of situation. But I've also seen, when we come to sim racing again, people seem to be very glued to one game, if that makes sense. It's like people arguing all the time about what is the best sim. And I'm like, in sim racing, we have like 3.5 games or so. Why? We can enjoy them all. That is fine. You don't have to only play one. And
I switch between 4 different games: iRacing, ACC, normal AC because mods are amazing, and then Dirt Rally 2.0. Yeah. Those are the 4, and I love them all equally. One day I'll be like, I just don't feel like being in tryhard mode in Dirt Rally because it's like constant level 11 control, and I just want to relax. So I'll switch over to like an ACC and just join a bot race.
Yeah, true.
Relax and play Wreckfest for a little while and pass people and take them out and have no consequences for it.
Yeah, but I think Rennsport will have probably a tough spot to be in because it will launch with GT3 cars. I don't know if there are any plans to have more cars like on the beta. I don't think so. I mean, the current build just is 3 or 4 GT3 cars, which is fine because it's the most popular car class, and I think that's also what the community voted to be the first class to be included.
I think it's okay only because it's trying to fill the ultra competitive gap. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be the everyday racer. It's trying to be the official events for official race series and, big things happening with it where let's say you unlike iRacing, the special events and the daily races don't really matter in the end of things.
Yeah, that's true.
But it seems like Rennsport is kind of like, we want to be the place for GT3 competitive racing.
Yeah, also with how they approach it right now with ESL, like having a esport event before people can even play the game, or like everyone can play the game. And
yeah, coming from the guy who gets to play the game.
Yeah. But we'll see.
When ESL came out, I was super excited for the event because any additional events that we can have in sim racing that are, what am I trying to say, that are taken to that next level, because I watch Call of Duty League. I've seen League of Legends and Dota and things like that. And I think the production of it is part of the fun of it.
Absolutely.
Like it being such an official event at such a massive scale is just cool, right?
Yeah.
And when we have sim racing, let's take Daytona or Le Mans, those weren't really huge events. They were huge events because sim racers know about them and a lot of us watch them. Yeah. But the production level of that stuff wasn't quite where ESL is representing. And I was super excited about that. But while watching it, for some reason, because I watched pretty much all the coverage, for some reason I couldn't shake the feeling of being left out in a way of like, this is an exclusive thing that I don't have access to. And it felt weird as a sim racer because every single other event I could be like, oh, I'm just going to sign up for the event and I'm going to race in the event.
Do you feel like that because it's invite only or because you can't play the game yet?
I tried to determine that, and I think it's because I can't play the game yet. I don't think it's a problem, the event being invite only for the professionals, because I think we do need that level, that cutoff period where it's like, no, these are the invite only teams. If you want to be in this event, you have to get to the point where you're on the team and they send you. I think that's perfectly fine. It's just like professional football or professional any sport out there, right? But I feel like the overall feeling of left outness was because I couldn't play the game. I couldn't even try the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think they planned to release it earlier.
They did. I'm a member of their Discord, and the announcement post was completely understandable when they said, okay, we're going to hold off on the beta for the closed beta for general users, and we're going to focus only on the esports stuff. That was a bummer, understandable, and I don't know how I feel about it. I'm still kind of mixed because I can at one conversation I can be like, no, it's a good thing because these esports people, they really know what professional esports need in their environment. And then on another conversation, even the same conversation, I go, I don't know. It's a sim racing game. We're supposed to be able to play these.
Yeah,
right?
I get what you mean. Yeah, I think it's difficult. I mean, I had the chance to play it. I didn't play it that much because it's just pretty much practice, race alone on track. You try it out, you're like, cool, and then you go and hop into iRacing and race. But yeah, I get why you might feel like that, to be honest. It doesn't feel like it's an event. Yeah, I don't know how to say it. It's a sim
racing I think it's a sim racing event, which is super exciting as a sim racer, but it's not a sim racing event for sim racers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's
I think that might probably change in the future. I mean, obviously it's invite only now because there was no game for people to qualify in. So I guess they just picked a few teams. I mean, I think the choice makes sense. You have a lot of very well-known esport teams, and I think it's also cool to have. I think we have 4, right? 4 big esport teams that are not really known in sim racing, and to see how they approach it.
We absolutely needed that. Even though they took some talent from other teams and stuff like that, we needed the big names to jump in on sim racing, not only for, I don't want to say notoriety, but just the recognition that sim racing is a platform that is competitive, that does matter, you know? Because up until this point, you know, we had our big teams that sim racers knew as big teams, but we didn't really have gaming teams. We didn't have that notoriety within the gaming space, and I think that's very important. I think they did a good job there, for sure. I don't know. I'm super excited about it. I'm just excited to have another game out there. I think it would be beneficial if they did kind of like a Call of Duty League thing. So if you go to a Call of Duty tournament, the 3 days prior or even the day of, during the day, you can actually compete with your own team. In the event. So it's not televised, it's not put on streams or anything, but if you go, you bring your team and then you do brackets and you get up to certain levels and you can win the, you know, the championships, the public stuff. But in the end of the day, and then at the last day, it's all about the professional teams, and the professional teams are competing there. So it's a little bit more inclusive that way, and I could see sim racing go that route.
Oh, absolutely.
As well. So like Sim Racing Expo is a prime example of how they could manage that. You could go to the Fanatec booth and you could qualify with your team and have that little, you know, within the Expo championship. But and then we have the professional trophy and the professional teams and stuff. I think that would be a very good way to go about it.
Yep, absolutely. I agree.
I like that. Did you go to Sim Racing Expo 22?
Yep, I've been there all the days.
I mean, we were there as well.
I'm with GSI, so it's pretty much my job to be there.
GSI, I've seen you sharing stuff on Twitter, and I'm so jealous. I want their GT wheel, but I can't drop that kind of money on a wheel.
It's not cheap. That's true.
But, and you know, just like my tech geek nerd self, I'm like, but if I got it, it'd be like the best wheel I have, and like trying to combat the investment phobia with the overall like, oh, but it's a really cool piece of, you know how it is.
Yeah, I mean, it is high-end gear. It's not cheap. I think it's worth the money. I think also compared to the competition, the price is fair for what you get. But yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I remember when I bought my Logitech G27 and had like buyer's remorse for 3 weeks because who spends like $250 on gaming peripherals, right? And now, well,
yeah, the wall over there is a little bit, but it's interesting how sim racing is. I think most people start with like a Thrustmaster or a Logitech G series something, right? I started with a G25 and I've kept getting the new G series for a while, and then like Fanatec was the ultimate, like, ooh, if I can get Fanatec, I'm done.
I remember
now. I have Fanatec. I've replaced the pedals with Husenfelds already, like, and I'm slowly just getting more and more expensive.
It feels like there's no end.
There is no end whatsoever, right?
Crazy.
It's just such a gateway thing because you know, you're like, oh, I'll just get that. I'll get the entry level wheel and I'll be perfectly happy.
Yeah.
And then the more you learn about it, the more you see other things, more knowledge helps. But it's just, I don't know. It's sim racing is like a drug. It's so much fun.
I mean, when
There's
I
just
started,
something about it.
I mean, if you really want to call it sim racing, I was like, I don't know, 10 years old or so with a joystick. And the problem was
sim racing quite yet, but it, you know, got you into racing for sure.
It was Grand Prix 2, Micro Pros.
Nice.
That was good fun. But the joystick had the problem. It was like round, and if you went to the front, you could go full throttle. But the moment you turn to the left, you couldn't go full throttle anymore.
Decreases the throttle automatically.
That was amazing. So then I had to do like use buttons on the keyboard to accelerate in the corners when you still had to turn. Crazy workarounds, and yeah. But I remember buying the first wheel. That was also a Logitech. Oh god, I don't even know the name. It was yellow and it had no force feedback.
Right.
But
have you ever booted up your wheel, not paid attention, got into a race, and like the force feedback isn't activated or something? You're like, what in the world is happening here?
Yeah, sure. Or the classic, the wheel is rotated 360 degrees, so you have it straight in your hands, and then you start and you drive right next into the wall, and you're like, okay.
You're like,
well, that's a shame.
That was fabulous. Great start to that race, right?
Yep.
Oh, man. My first game that I can remember racing in vividly, I think I raced in some like Sega Genesis stuff and Nintendo like RC Pro-Am and stuff, but the first real game that I would say got me into sim racing was Need for Speed #1, the very first one on PC back in the day, and keyboard only and everything,
and with the cheat codes where you could drive as a tree trunk and stuff like that, right?
That game, there was a mod in it on one of the levels. The level had a super long straight, and you could mod a car that could go like 300 miles an hour. And then you could mod the track so that just randomly in the middle of this straight was this massive jump. Okay. And I just remember just running that level and trying to get farther and farther and farther and farther and see how far I could get, just for hours and hours and hours. And then, it just progressed from there, where I did race with a controller for a very long time. And then the G25 was my first wheel that I committed to. And back in those days, it was nice because I created just out of, that particle board that you get from like just any store where you can buy building materials. I built my own rig and all the crazy stuff. I went to, we have this place called Pick and Pull, which is basically a car junkyard in our area. And so it's a bunch of car crashes that, the insurance companies wrote off and paid the settlements on or whatever. You can go there and you can take whatever you want out of these cars and just pay for it.
Okay.
So I went there and got a car seat from like a Mazda, and I put it on my rig. So I had a real car seat on my rig and everything. I thought I was the best. I was like, this is the best. I'll never need anything better. Amazing times. And now, now I have my eyes on like D-Box stuff just for no reason.
Same.
But
I always make the excuse that I can't buy it because it's too noisy for streaming, and so that works till now.
It'll work for a little while, and then all of a sudden D-Box will be like, silent actuators for streamers, and you're like, great, thanks. Thanks for that.
I mean, the Gen 5 actually are not very audible, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, it's I tried it at the expo, it's fine. But,
nice.
Still
D-Box stuff would be, so I don't feel like I'd want it so much in like just a normal iRacing Mazda or a Clio or something like that. But I really feel like it would be awesome in Dirt Rally, just bouncing around and everything in there. I think that would be very cool.
I had a seat mover on my rig for quite some time.
Oh, did you?
That was also very cool, even though first I thought, when only the seat moves, I thought that must feel weird because
your hands aren't moving, but you are.
But actually, it felt almost more natural to me.
Really?
In the braking zones, for example, because you get pushed towards the steering wheel. I don't know. It's hard to describe. I was surprised about that. In the end, I did remove it because it was a bit too loud, but
that's interesting.
It felt very nice. Yeah.
I guess from what you're saying, like when you brake and you get closer to the steering wheel, it would almost feel like it's simulating G's a little bit more, because like G's would physically move you. So in a car, your steering wheel does move away from you. Huh.
In the end, in a race car, you probably won't move because of the belts, but still, it kind of made sense how it felt.
Right. That's interesting. I'll have to try some more of those things at Sim Racing Expo. I tried the Visaro stuff, the crazy hydraulic suspended stuff, of course. Yeah. But those are a little bit out of my casual price range, being like $100K and stuff like that.
Easy.
But very cool. Yeah, whatever. Just take it out of my wallet.
But to be honest, with everything I have tried with motion, I think it's a little less is more.
Okay.
The crazy throws you through the air stuff, it feels impressive, But I always thought the more subtle things, like D-Box, for example, feels more realistic.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, you're not in a fighter jet in the end of it. You know, you're in a car that's, you know, on the road. The suspension, travels a little bit, but generally speaking, you're not going to like turn 45 degrees to your side or something crazy. Yeah, that does make sense. I've seen those ones on like TikTok where they're like literally suspended, but it is a flight simulator, and the flight sim can literally turn them and do crazy stuff. I'm like, wow, some of these people, how do they have this amount of money to just whatever, throw it out?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
My new thing, since I can't really get into the D-Box stuff, because my rig's actually mounted to this desk that I'm sitting at. It's a really good desk-mounted rig, but I've started in VR as of last week. I bought an HP Reverb G2, and I'm in love with that thing.
Yeah, it's unbeatable in terms of immersion, right?
It's so I raced for 3 straight days in VR, you know, trying to get it configured and everything like that. And now that I'm satisfied with all the configurations and the resolutions and everything like that in games, I went back to my triples because I'm like, yeah, let's just see. I've been racing in VR for a couple of days now. Let's see triples. So I went over to triples. Didn't even take me 15 minutes to go. I'm just not liking this as much anymore. And that's really annoying because you're in the car in VR. You're literally in the car.
Yeah.
So like, you know, you get into the Mazda and you turn yourself like this and you can see the back and you can see all the stuff, and you're just like, this is so much fun. And like the mirror situation where, you know, you have the virtual mirror on your triples, which is fine, but you actually physically look at all 3 mirrors to check your blind spots and stuff. Or if you can't see them in your blind spot, you literally look at the car.
Yeah, it's unmatched in terms of immersion. I remember getting...
I love it.
What was it? Oculus Dev Kit 1 or something? Like one of the very, very early VR headsets with a crazy bad resolution. Like you could barely see the track. You didn't know is it the left-hand corner, right-hand corner coming up? No clue. But it's just like you sit in the car and then you look around and it's like, wow, it's... Live for Speed, I think it was the first game that I tried with VR, but I love it. Obviously, for streaming, it's not ideal.
It's a little rough,
too hot for me. And
so, with the Reverb G2, I did get a replacement like faceplate thing that has little vents on the top and the bottom. That does help, but it does get hot in there once in a while. And I was thinking about, there's like these little teeny like watch battery fans that you can get, and then you could just put them like and point them onto the little vents in there. I might try something like that. It does get a little warm,
but it's immersive. Real race car, it's warm as well.
Yeah, you're gonna have a helmet on, so right. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I tried VR racing the first time in my Oculus Quest 1. And it wasn't quite there because it would skip and the frame rate wasn't very good. The immersion was there, but it was just frustrating because it was skipping and like dropping frames and stuff, and you just can't have that. With the Reverb G2, though, perfectly smooth at 90 frames, and it's a completely different sim racing experience, 100%.
If you're into flight simulations, you need to try that in VR. That's also amazing.
So it's funny you say that, because there's sometimes iRacing when you're in like the lobby or whatever, or just looking at the menus, it does that camera switching where it automatically switches to different cameras. And at one point it went to the blimp camera and I was in VR and I was like, oh man, I need a flight simulator. This is pretty cool. And you know, from my perspectives, because I do fly those FPV drones, which do have the goggles and you're flying through the air. So I feel like it would be a very good thing for me to get.
And
so
this
I'm going to try
stuff
some flight sims.
Is also something I want to try. I've been training on the simulator, but I haven't built one yet.
I didn't go for the built stuff. I went and just pre-bought. I get GEP RC when I buy stuff.
Okay.
And I got the Mark V, which is really nice, and also the Cinemark or Cinebot 30. I can't remember what the other one is, but I enjoy them a lot. Get digital when you go goggles. Get digital. I went with the DJI digital system. My buddy went with just one of the analog systems, and I've tried that one, and it's just not a good experience.
I've
It's
just
like watching
seen,
old school TV. Like, So all the recommendation from me would be get a pre-made, because you'll learn how to build it when you break it, because you will break it.
Yeah.
But you won't have that that big learning gap where you can't even fly, where you can't even get it off the ground. So you'll be able to get the drone, bind them to your goggles, and fly, because that's what you want to do. It's like,
true.
Yeah, tinkering is fun, but you'll learn tinkering later. I fully believe that if you want to get in the air, buy pre-made, get the system, and just get up in the air and have some fun.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I need to finally do it. I've been really practicing in the simulator. And also, like, that made me think, how cool would it be if iRacing or ACC or something had a FPV mod where you could fly...
Yes. Oh,
like for camera, like as a
I was
spectator,
watching Rennsport. If you go back into my tweet history, I literally go, Rennsport, please let me connect my drone controller and do the camera. Because imagine just a chase cam with an FPV drone as
cool.
part of the camera system, and you never have to worry about interrupting the cars because it's not even there.
It's
really.
True. There's a mod for GTA 5. I think.
There is. I've tried it. It's
so much fun.
Just as cool as you think it would be. It's just as cool. It's so much fun to fly around in that city. Oh man!
And it could improve the sim racing broadcasts quite a bit, because I think drone footage looks so amazing, and there's no risk in virtual motorsport. So
literally no risk. You could have anybody flying that thing, or even autopilot flying it, and just do a couple of interesting like swoops and whoops and stuff like that. That would be so much fun. I would definitely get in on that for sure. Because in which simulator do you run with? If you run Liftoff on Steam,
I do have Liftoff, but I have two. But which one did I?
If you run Liftoff on Steam, there's a level where you can turn on race cars, and you can practice chasing the race cars around the racetrack. It's so much fun.
Oh yeah, Liftoff.
That's a good one.
Hours of play time.
Oh wow! Okay, nice. You know what's kind of interesting? We'll get off the subject of FPV drones here in a moment, since it's a sim racing podcast. But I find flying real drones easier than flying in the simulator.
Oh really?
Okay. I do. It's. I don't know if it's just there's that sense of fear of breaking your own drone, so maybe you fly differently. But in the sim, I crash way more than I do in real life.
Yeah, I guess.
Which is good.
It's time to finally buy a drone and just try it out.
Yeah, I mean, they're a little pricey, but, if you're ever looking for a recommendation, just send me a DM and I can give you a couple different recommends on that one. For sure.
That would be cool.
I enjoy it a lot. But back to sim racing. So iRacing is kind of your go-to sim racing game. Is there something specific about iRacing that keeps you going back again and again?
The variety of cars?
Yep.
And the fact that I can just I don't have to think about it. I can just start playing the game, and there's always something to race at. Yeah,
so I love league racing. Obviously, we're a grid finder. That's kind of our thing.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about, there are times where I'm just like, you know what, I want to race a couple, like at lunch during the workday. I'll be like, you know what, I want to throw a couple races together. Within 15 minutes, I'm on the track.
Yeah, true.
It's amazing. Yeah, you can get on the track in ACC and also AC as well. But I feel like the standard of racing on iRacing is way different than on those games. Even though they're simulators, if you join just a general lobby, I just don't feel like the racecraft is quite there in the other ones.
Yeah, that's true. I think if you have matched races, it can be okay, especially when there's also report systems. I mean, iRacing isn't perfect.
No, but by no means.
I always say, there might be a better sim out there. There might be a game with better graphics and sound, but it's kind of like iRacing feels like home, I always say. I can't really describe what it is, but whenever I play iRacing, it's just fun and easy. The
physics models, the tire models, you do get used to it. Like in AC and ACC, I don't know how to manage my tires as well as I do in iRacing. I just don't.
No.
And when it comes to just iRacing, the feel of like a Mazda. So if I get in a Mazda MX-5 in ACC or in AC versus iRacing, they feel like two completely different cars. They shift differently. The revs are different. Just they're not the same car. In iRacing, it's my favorite car to race.
Mm.
In AC, it's probably one of my least favorite cars to race. So I understand that it feels like home a lot, because I'm the same way. I got super frustrated last night. I was playing a track I'd never raced on before, because there's plenty of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I get on the track. I have 5 minutes to try to learn the track, and I'm like, this is probably a terrible idea. So I get on the track, and I'm like in a rush to try to learn it. I'm hitting the grass and everything, and then I got so angry with iRacing, and it's grass.
Oh yeah.
Or I don't know if you can call it grass, because it has no stopping power whatsoever on
Did
grass.
you see the finish of the Sebring 12-hour race?
I didn't see it, but I've seen some posts on Twitter. And
it reminded me a lot of iRacing grass. But obviously I don't know if it's realistic, but it can be frustrating, yeah.
Well, so I've driven on grass before in real life, and I'm like, I can stop and I can go. Like this isn't like this weird substance that just has no friction. So last night I hit the grass in the Mazda. Just one tire, single tire. And it just threw my car around. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's iRacing grass. But I was braking, and I just slid for like 400 yards into the wall. I'm like, I didn't even slow down a little bit. Like, I just went full on speed into the wall, and I'm like, why is iRacing grass like this? Why?
I don't know. I also don't know. Even if it is realistic, do we need it? No, I don't think so.
No.
But it is what it is.
So if you hit the grass in like ACC or something, it feels realistic. You lose some grip. You can't accelerate very well. You lose a little bit of turning power and stuff, but you don't just like get thrown off into space.
Yeah, that is true.
And I thought about that a little bit when I was super frustrated, because I ended up backing out of the race, and I'm like, I'm going to end up ruining someone else's race. I'll learn the track later. So I back out, and I start to think about it, after I've gotten over my WTF iRacing grass is ridiculous mode.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it does add a certain amount of don't touch the grass, which is probably good. So in ACC, there's no, I have no fear over the grass. If I hit the grass, I'm like, whatever, just keep on rolling.
No.
Just get out of it. If you hit the grass in iRacing, it's like the worst. It's like falling off Rainbow Road in Mario Kart. Just gone. You're dead.
It's true. Yeah. But try when you come close to the grass, if you have a clutch on your rig, try going with the clutch. That helps a lot. Definitely go off throttle. That can help in some situations, not in all of them, but I know the grass of death on iRacing, especially in the braking zones. You just look at it and you're like a little close to it and you're gone. But
it's weird, because I feel like, so I've saved a handful of in the grass, so it's really inconsistent. So there are times where you can save yourself and line yourself back up with the track and get back on route. Yeah, it takes you and you get a penalty or whatever, but you're not dead. But for some reason, if you touch the brakes and you break traction with your wheels and they start sliding, they never regain ever. It's like maximum slide, as no friction as possible. So I've come to the conclusion that if you touch the grass, don't touch the brake, because you don't want to lock your tires.
Yeah, that's true. It always leads to funny situations at Daytona in the infield, That fast left-hander, when you go too wide, okay, that doesn't work. Maybe some netcode, and one car gets sent into the grass. Then you go straight across the grass, and then you rejoin the track, and that's always the big wrecks. And I always lap one Daytona. You always have to watch the grass on the right side to see, is there some car incoming?
Yeah, is there someone
so often? That's crazy.
You know what's? I know we just got done talking about VR, but one of the things that is more interesting in VR to me is crashes. Crashes and swerving in and out of like trying to keep yourself alive. Yeah. So if a crash happens in front of you in a screen, you're like, okay, get out of this. But if it's in VR, there's cars flying by you, and you're like, oh no. You're like dodging. It's like a Michael Bay film. Everything's in slow motion flying around you.
Yeah,
it's so crazy.
I think everybody should at least experience VR once.
I agree.
It's such a game changer for immersion. Some people like it, some people don't. I think VR is amazing. I don't know if I would be using triples if I wasn't streaming.
Yeah.
But yeah, VR is...
So I went with a triple setup because I also use it for work. So having 3 monitors for work is cool as well. But I initially went with it because I tried Oculus and it was low resolution, didn't perform very well. And I was just like, nah, not my thing, I guess. But yeah, if you're going to try VR, I would always recommend trying on a system that runs it smooth, number one, and trying on a headset that actually does have some good resolution.
Yeah,
the headsets are getting better and better now, but the Reverb G2 really did change VR for me.
Yeah, that's what I have here as well. It's really, really good. The new PlayStation VR headset also is really nice. Unfortunately,
it looks
only
really
PlayStation,
nice.
But yeah, I think tech is getting there, and also PCs finally get to a point where we can run the necessary frame rates.
Yeah. Well, so I'm pretty much locked at 90 FPS on the HP, but they have that Pimax one that's 8K. I'm like, there's no way my video card. I have a 3080. I'm like, there's no way I would get solid frame rates on a 8K display.
Yeah.
You'd have to get like a 4090 minimum
and even then,
to be able to run that thing. I don't even think that would run it smoothly, honestly.
I mean, I run a 4090 in my rig, and sometimes at the start, for example, Long Beach or so, 40 FPS, and you're like, but what hardware do I need? But I think the engine of iRacing is, you have the CPU with 32 threads, and then you look in your monitor, and you see, okay, 1.5 of them are being used. Amazing.
Yeah. It's definitely iRacing in the engine and just optimization in general, because certain tracks like Nürburgring or something like that, rock solid frame rates.
Yeah.
But if you go to like VIR, tanks your frame rate completely. And only on portions of the track, like different sections of VIR are worse. Like the home straight is fine, but in the back, the far back, it's terrible back there. It's definitely the engine without a doubt. Because like you said, you look at your little hardware monitors and you're like, what is going on? It's using 1/8 of my PC to run this game. What is it doing?
Yeah, I sometimes think iRacing should maybe make like a cut and just start developing with a new engine. But it's always easy to say as somebody who has no clue about it. I guess iRacing knows what they are doing, mostly.
I've been thinking about that for a long time, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's pretty hard to change engines. And then Fortnite did it. So yeah, they were on Unreal Engine, but they went to the newest version of Unreal, and it completely changed the game. Now, I'm not a Fortnite player, but I can recognize Fortnite's a fun game. A lot of people love it, and it does have its visual style that it does very, very well.
Yep.
When they changed to the new Unreal Engine now, and instantly my mind was like, okay, iRacing, your move. Let's do this. let's go to a new system.
Yeah, I think it would be good, but probably very hard to achieve with the tons of content I have. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not like they chose the engine in 2000 whatever, and they obviously continue to develop it and everything. But yeah, it can be frustrating sometimes to see the performance on newest hardware, and you're like,
okay. I have a 5900X, 64 gigs of RAM, and a 3080. That's a good machine.
Yeah.
Now, it's not the top that it was when I bought it, but that's just PC buying, and that's frustrating. But when I get into a game and I'm like, why am I getting under 100 FPS on this rig? What is happening? Why? It's just one of those frustrating moments, and you constantly have to update. But even like you said, you could get a 4090 and it's not going to fix the problem because the engine is the root cause of the frame rate issues.
I wonder what will happen when iRacing introduces rain, if it ever comes.
I wonder if the problem is frame rates on miscellaneous tracks, because sure, I'm sure on a couple of them it runs really nicely, right? Maybe Spa or something like that runs fine. But you get it into like a VIR, or you get it into some of the problematic tracks, and all of a sudden
think of Long Beach
15 frames
at night with all the lights and rain with all the reflections.
No way.
You have to probably go from frames to seconds to seconds per frame or something.
And so I worry about the rain because the grass situation is so bad.
I think it will be fine.
You know what's weird though? Grass is so terrible, right? Until you go into rallycross. If you race in a rallycross race and you hit the grass, it's just like the dirt on the road. It doesn't change. So it's definitely something in the engine that is telling it, oh, it's a road, and then it's grass.
Yeah, probably a tire parameters or something. I would assume, but
yeah, I don't know. I'm very excited for iRacing to put some more stuff out, but one of the major things that I wish they would do is update my tires throughout the race and not only in the pits.
Yeah, I don't know why they're not doing that.
I don't know how they're not doing that, because you just have to hope and guess, and you listen to your tires and you start to get good at understanding where your tires are based on listening. But iRacing has the display piece for it to tell you what your tires are sitting at, but it just doesn't update until you're in the pits. It drives me insane. And then if you have like Race Labs or, one of the many apps out there, that Sim Hub, Race Labs, I think Caps or something is another one. If you have any of those, it's useless to have the tire stuff because it only updates once in a while.
Yep, that's true.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So what's on the horizon for you for sim racing? You have anything big going on?
No, I don't think so.
Other than the fact that you get to play Rennsport and we don't.
No, at the moment, in terms of sim racing, no. I'm getting to drive an F4 car in real life in 2 weeks. That will be exciting. Yeah,
that's going to be amazing. I'm assuming you're going to do a YouTube video on that and all that stuff. When do you get to do that?
When? Oh, what?
Yeah, when?
End of the month.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
End of March.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, Nürburgring. Let's see. I mean,
I love that track too. Oh, that's in my top 5 tracks, without a doubt.
Yeah,
not the whole, just the GP version. That one is my favorite. That's kind of my go-to test track on any racing game. I will find a Porsche on Nürburgring, and that'll be like my benchmark for if the game feels nice, if I like the graphics, etc. Just all the different things. It's always my test track. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. I've never driven a race car, so I've driven a race kart once. That was freaking scary.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I'm looking forward to that.
That's going to be an absolute amazing opportunity. How did you come across that opportunity?
Actually, I met the guys who have the cars at the Sim Racing Expo.
Oh.
And then we talked a bit, and then a few weeks ago, he sent me a message, "Hey Dan, end of March, do you have time?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, let's do it."
For that? Yes. Yeah. Of course I have time for that. I will make time for that.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's amazing. So when it comes to Rennsport, how can people get in there? How did you get in there? Is there something I can do? Some strings I can pull somewhere?
You can start streaming, get an audience, and wait. Ask you.
Okay, so I got to do the hard stuff. Okay.
Exactly. No, I guess the beta is very close.
Yeah,
the current build feels fine to me. The multiplayer looked good on ESL. It's only like, how many cars do they have there? 12 or something. Yeah. I think we are getting close to the closed beta, but I guess a lot of people will get in there, and
I hope. I want close racing to be something that is normal again. In iRacing, I'm so afraid to get really close to someone, especially like on their rear quarter panel. Like behind them, I'm okay, because if I tap the back bumper and nudge them a little bit, okay, that's not normally going to throw them out. But if we're racing and I'm barely inching up right next to their quarter panel, I'm like, it could be netcode, and all of a sudden one of us are thrown into a wall. Yeah. So I want it to be to the point where close racing is comfortable again. That will be very cool.
Yeah, it's always netcode. You never know. Even though I have to say I prefer the iRacing version, where sometimes you get the ghost contacts, compared to ACC, where the cars then will start warping around, and sometimes so hard to follow on a straight because you never know where they're going to warp next.
Yeah, it does make me laugh every single time iRacing does that car bounce when there's network lag.
I always to the ground. Always when I see that, I'm like, who thought it's a good idea? Somebody loses connection quickly. Let's have the car fly around.
Just literally
why?
Just gets tossed. Oh, it's so hilarious to see that. And then, if you're the person right behind them, you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna back off a bit. No idea where they are. But yeah, iRacing, the ghost contact is, I guess we live in the world of video games. We're gonna have netcode. We're gonna have lag. We're gonna have these things. It's never gonna be perfect, no matter what the game developers do.
Yeah, and if you think about even a good latency of, let's say, 40, 50 milliseconds, if you calculate that time into distance traveled at a certain speed, it's just not possible without any. You always have to predict, and it can always be wrong. And I think iRacing overall is probably doing the best job there, I think.
I'm always surprised, because you can, on the leaderboards, you can see the approximate locations of people.
Yeah.
I'm always surprised how I'm racing with people around the entire globe.
That's true.
And generally speaking, everything's going okay.
Yeah.
Because there are times when I'm playing like Call of Duty or something, and you're with people that are down the street from you, and you have lag, and you're like, what is going on here? Why is this happening? So it is impressive, and I do agree with you where it's iRacing does a very good job of that. Maybe that's part of it a little bit, how we feel like iRacing is home, because there are certain frustrations that we have to deal with in the world of sim racing, and iRacing is the ones that we've chosen to be like, okay, I'm okay with these.
That's true. Yeah.
Kind of interesting. Well, do you do community races or anything like that?
I do, but typically only week 13, like when iRacing doesn't have anything to race.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's hard to find people, to be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, I stream rather early European time. I mean, it's like 1 to 5 p.m. or something. Most people at work. Can be hard to find people that, if they have time to race, they probably rather race official than hop into a community race. But week 13 is always a lot of fun. I mean, it's always cool, like especially Laguna Seca, ignore all track limits and just like have fun with a rallycross car or something. It's always good fun.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, my problem is that sim racing is popular in the United States, but for a lot of the leagues, it's NASCAR stuff, NASCAR trucks, ovals, a lot of that, and that's not really my thing. So a lot of the GT3, GT4 rallycross stuff that I want to race in is actually overseas, so in your neck of the woods. And when they're doing their leagues, it's in the middle of my workday.
Yeah.
So I can't really participate there. That's why iRacing is a little bit better for me as well. Is just because I can race whenever I want, as much as I want, or as little as I want. So it's really nice to just jump in, go for it.
Even though I have to say, sometimes I miss league racing a little bit, because it's just, I mean, I don't do that because it's in the evenings when most people have time, but I don't race in the evenings. It's enough when you're already done the afternoon. But it's just a different kind of thrill, I think, when you have
rivals
and you have one race per week. On iRacing, you have a bad race, it's like whatever.
The next one.
You just do another one in 2 hours, and it doesn't really have consequences. You don't really get this championship feeling. Yeah. And I remember like pretty much before I streamed, I did quite a bit of league racing, and that was always, I was way more nervous for that stuff. You want to do good, you have like rivals and stuff, and it feels less anonymous in a way.
It is less anonymous, and I think that's part of the draw of league racing is like having those rivals, having that fight for points. It's very cool. It is. I actually end up commentating more on league racing than I do racing in league racing, and it's really cool to see like the chitter chatter between the racers after the race and before the race and stuff. And it's it's real racing, so it's no different than like if you were at a track talking to the next person that's behind you in quali or something like that. It's the same thing. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
I enjoy that stuff. Well, Dan, we're at about an hour now, so we try to respect people's time on the podcast and make sure. Do you have anything that you want to share with our listeners / viewers before we sign off for this episode?
Always have
Dan Suzuki is you on Twitch, just nice and simple. Your name, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
I don't know. Like I think what I always say to people is have fun in sim racing.
Yeah.
Don't try it too hard in the end. It should be about fun. If you don't enjoy it, find something else to race. And yeah.
Nice. Well, you stream Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, normally around 12 to 1600 GMT. So if any of you listeners want to go check out Dan's stream, go ahead and go to his stream on Twitch or your YouTube channel also.
Exactly.
There's that available.
If you want to watch some reviews or something.
If you're listening on podcast services, go check out his wall of steering wheels back there. It is impressive. There is a lot of them back there. I'll give you my address, so if you run out of room, you could just start sending them to my house instead.
Okay. How about this one here?
That one would be perfect.
This is, in fact, this is the only GSI Hyper in the world right now.
What? Yes, definitely send it over.
The first prototype.
Nice. That's amazing. Okay, well, that's going to do it for this episode. I appreciate you being here, Dan.
Thank you.
Truly amazing conversation with Dan. We always appreciate people hanging out with us. It's very interesting to hear that he actually is a little bit interested in FPV drone flying, since that's something in my little world on my hobby list that I do as well. I'm super excited about Rennsport. It's interesting because I really do think that it's ultimately not going to be an iRacing replacement. It's more going to be a competitive version of like ACC. Even though you can get into competitive in ACC, I think it's going to be like an official sim racing competitive game. But hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Sim Sundays, episode number 40. We'd like to thank, of course, our episode sponsor, Track Racer. So if you're looking to upgrade your rig, change it out, do whatever, go ahead and go to trackracer.com. That is track without a C, or just Google Track Racer. Super easy. We also, obviously, Grid Finder is a sponsor here. If you're looking to join a league, need to find something to race on Wednesday, Tuesday, whenever it may be that you're available, go ahead and go to gridfinder.com and search over 2,000. I think we're actually over 3,000 leagues at this point for any sim that you want to race. Also, if you're a league owner and you need to recruit some drivers, go ahead and list your league out on gridfinder.com. We are doing massive upgrades constantly with our league management system. So get your league on there early, maybe be selected for a testing role within Gridfinder and get those new features before everyone else. We appreciate it. We will see you for the next episode number 41 next week. Bye.